So first of all, both the PISA and the Samtha provisions, the Samtha judgment and the PISA judgment, are applicable to Schedule 5 of the Indian Constitution. Schedule 5 in general, according to the Constitution, has a tribal advisory council which would be appointed by the governor and which would manage the whole law and order and regulatory functions and other such developmental functions in those areas. Other than that, in Schedule 6 we see that Schedule 6 has a district council and a regional council, which has more powers as compared to the tribal advisory council of the Schedule 5 area. And moreover, the funds that come for the implementation of laws that are made by the district and the regional council of Schedule 6 are directly come from the Consolidated Fund of India. So that is there. As a result, we can say that the state government's intervention is very much minimalized, and there's more autonomy given to these reasons that come under Schedule 6. Now, Bastar, which is a district in Chhattisgarh, has made a demand that it should be shifted from Schedule 5 to Schedule 6 because of these latter areas having more autonomy and flexibility in their operations. So that is there. Now, what is the problem with Schedule 5? We see that Schedule 5 basically it is the failure of governance which has given rise to Naxalism. So first of all, we see that the tribal advisory councils were never appointed by the governors. Okay, so that is there, and the Samtha judgment that came in 1997, which was 1 year after the 1996 PISA judgment. So Samtha judgment said that I'm not sure about this, but it said that the governors can debar a non-state entity from purchasing tribal land. So it was hailed as a landmark judgment, and that was there. But the state government and the Ministry of Mines protested. State governments such as Andhra Pradesh protested that this would not only affect the mining sector but also non-agriculture activities such as industries and manufacturing. So as a result, there was a huge uproar, and again the Samtha judgment suffered from implementation deficit. So it was never applied. Now the 1996 PISA judgment. PISA judgment has also a little bit problems. So basically we are relating the problems in the 5th schedule areas. First being the non-implementation of Samtha judgment, and the fact that the Samtha judgment had to be made is again a problem. So Samtha judgment was the second problem, and the first problem would be the failure of tribal advisory council. Now third would be the failure of PISA provision. Although the PISA provision basically it empowers the Gram Sabha, it is extension of Panchayati Raj institution to Schedule 5 areas. So under it empowers the Gram Sabha to be the topmost body to regulate what has been called as Jal, Jungle and Jameen of the areas in 5th schedule. So there are provisions that it can debar certain persons from lending money, it can regulate the market, it can also regulate purchase of land, and it can regulate the production of minor forest produce. So that is there. Now PISA judgment has it has been strengthened by the Niyamgiri Hill judgment. This was there in Ashutosh sir's class. That is there. So these are the things which are there. Now I'll talk about public choice theory. So public choice theory is basically an approach. It's called a public choice perspective, because they have not given fundamental or universal concepts which are to be applied. It's basically a critical theory which examines, and as a result it proposes certain solutions that are there. So that is there. So basically three fundamentals of the public choice theory are firstly the rational nature of man, that is man as a utility maximizer, then methodological individualism, that is individual becomes the focus of attention both at the bureaucratic as well as the societal level, And the third being political exchange, which was there in one of the notes by Dr. Bean. Not able to recall properly. Probably it says it is an extension of the rational nature of man to the political organization, where the politicians and the bureaucrats, they indulge in self-aggrandizement. But I'm not sure. But the third would be political exchange, which is there. So these three things are there. Now, applying the critical perspective, we see that even the democracy is a democracy of the majority. The minority does not have much voice in it. And why does it not have much voice? Because we have the first past the post system. Now, just a little bit of a sideline note, that is NVITA recommended 50% plus to be applied to the criteria of FPTP. So that would remove all the problems of regionalism, communalism, and all that. Now, so it says that first past the post has failed, so we need to have more such, the democracy needs to be redefined, and probably proportional representation should be there. Although it did not say that, but this is like a solution which comes. So again, it is questioning democracy. Now, political theory. So similarly, it is basically the economics concept applied to politics. So she says that two circles should be drawn, and the areas that is common to both the circles should be shaded, and that is basically PCA. But PCA is not just politics and economics; it is also the application of sociology and psychology, because we see that behavioral factors are considered, such as the aggrandizing nature. What else do I remember from PCT? So it says that that the value efficiency or the value for money should be there. So how is this value for money supposed to be brought about? So Vincent Ostrom has talked about institutional pluralism. So you say institutional pluralism is basically a number of institutions providing number of facilities. So that would give more voice and exit to the consumers. The citizens here are treated as consumers. So number of players has to be increased, and how is the number of players supposed to increase? We need to have participation from civil society, we need to have participation from the market as well as government. So these three things would come in. Now this is again a part of, a later discourse of this would come under the governance approach. So it is also calling for decentralization, participatory approach involving the three institutions. So that is there. Now the citizen would have the option of, this would promote competition and give the citizen more choice in the selection of various goods and services, and this would lead to more value efficiency in the production of goods and services. And so the PCT says after this, that is institutional pluralism, that there has to be a demarcation between public good and private good, because public goods have a certain criteria which cannot be fulfilled by the private sector. That is, public goods have to be produced in areas where the problem of free rider exists. Because you see that a tree which has been planted by the government would be utilized by everyone irrespective of the taxes or the user charge one pays for the plantation of the tree. And similarly, a park has been made, so anybody can enter without any kind of a discrimination. So again, problem of free rider exists. This cannot be sorted by the private sector. Now, private sector has to provide those services. These services have to be provided by public sector. Now, private sector has to provide those services which can be effectively brought under the concept of user fee. So you sell a cloth, you sell a fish. That is all to be, and moreover, it says that under the provision of public good, more and more market should be maybe as a joint venture or maybe as a partner should be made. So that is PCT. Thank you very much.